Welcome to the RTL software, and let's talk about one of the most critical part of project management process, about the risk management. Before we start, let me introduce myself. My name is Dmytro. I'm a senior project manager in RTL software and certified project manager professional. I have 7 years of experience in project management in IT and about the same in other domain areas. The risk is an uncertain event or condition that, if occurring, has a positive or negative impact on the execution of a project. Please pay your attention that the risk may have either negative or positive impact. From this perspective, we can divide all the risks into 3 categories. Positive risks, also called opportunities, that may increase the value that the project brings or decrease the cost or duration without decreasing the value. Negative risks, also called threats, that may decrease the value that the project brings or increase the cost or duration without increasing the value. There I have to mention one subcategory. It's a critical risk. The critical risk is an event or condition that makes it impossible for a project to succeed. Also, there are a lot of things that looks like risks, but they are not. It may be any event or condition that will occur for sure or not occur for sure. That may be uncertain event or condition that will not affect our project. Or it may be a part of the ordinary process. For example, the changing of requirements, it's uncertain event, it will affect our project, but it's a part of integrated change management process, our standard ordinary process. Of course, we want to work with risk somehow. Here we have the standard 6-step approach. Step 0 is the risk management planning. At this step, we decide how we will identify risks, what will be the approach to work with them, and who will be the responsible person. After it, we can start the identification process. We should try to identify as many risks as we can before start of development, but this step should not be finished until the project ends. After the identification, it must be analyzed. The raw part that must be done for all identified risks is qualitative analysis. Is this risk positive or negative? Is the probability high or low? Will the impact be big or small? Answers for these questions will allow us to prioritize risks. And for most important of them, we may do quantitative analysis. That means more accurate estimation of probability and impact. When we know the key risks properties, we may plan the responding for each particular risk, identify risk occurring triggers, and assign the responsible persons. When all of analysis and planning is done, we have to monitor the occurring of risk and its trigger, monitor of execution responding plans, and, if needed, redo the analysis and planning. Now, I want to ask you to do a small exercise. On this slide, you can see the list of risks. Please put this video on a pause and try to identify the risks category for each of them. Let's talk about where the risks are coming from. We can identify 3 main origins of risks. Technological. It's all the risks that are related with technological implementation of the project. Operating, it's all the risks related with organizational and execution process of the project. And business, that are related with market situation and relationship between executing company and customer. Only technological risks are specific for software development projects. So let's review this origin more detailed and break it down to most typical sources. You can see them on the slide. It may be legacy code, when we got the unfinished project from previous developer, we don't know about the problems that may already exist in the code base. And when we face them, we will need to spend additional time and additional effort to handle them. Also, it may be using of third-party solutions. Each time we use some library, there is a risk that this library will not work as we assumed. So we will have to redo this work or even implement this functionality by ourselves. Of course, it will have negative impact on the project cost and duration. When we classified all the risks by origin and source, we may join them to the same easy-to-read visual structure, name it risk breakdown structure. That's very useful tool to work with risk and their groups. Please do the second exercise. Put this video on a pause and try to identify the risks origin for all the risks you can see on the slide. After identification and analysis of each particular risk, we should decide on how to respond to it. And here we have 6 strategies. The first and the best is the avoidance. This strategy allows us to completely reduce the risk probability or impact. Unfortunately, there are not a lot of cases where we may use this strategy. Similar strategy, but just a partial decrease in risk probability and impact, is called mitigation. The next strategy is very important for outsourced software development. It's delegation. If the customer agrees with the fixed price contract, he delegates most of the risks that have been identified in the risk register to service company by paying some fee that already have been included into the price. In case of time and material model, the price will be cheaper, but the additional effort for handling risk impact in case of their occurring will be billed to customer. If we work in a multi-project environment and find the common for several projects risk, or just cannot do anything with the risk on the project level, we have to transfer the responsibility for this risk onto higher level. This strategy is called escalation. Finally, we may accept the risk, actively or passively. If we can create the contingency plan and it includes the contingency reserve into our cost baseline, it must be an active acceptance. Otherwise, passive acceptance. There are all the strategies that we can apply. We may combine them or choose a single one for each particular risk. Let's do the third exercise. Please put the video on a pause and try to choose one or several strategies for responding to each risk you can see on the slide. Doing the exercise and trying to select the best strategy, you may face the question on how to choose. For this task, we may use the decision tree tool. On the slide, you may see the good example. Let's imagine that you have to be on the meeting in other city in time. Otherwise, you will lose $4,000. The baseline is to buy the cheapest ticket, but in this case, there will be 30% chance of an airplane delay. The mitigation strategy is to buy ticket in a more reliable company. It will cost $600 more, but the probability will be of the risk will be decreased to 10%. So the monetary expectation for the baseline is $300 plus $1,200. In case of applying mitigation strategy, the monetary expectation will be $900 plus $400. So, as you can see, in this case, the applying of mitigation strategy is the right choice. As I mentioned before, we should try to identify as many risks as we can. Unfortunately, we will never be able to identify them all. All the risks that we haven't identified may be joined into a set. This set is called unknown risk. I said unfortunately, because we cannot classify it, cannot estimate the probability and impact, cannot choose the strategy and create responding plans. The only one thing we can do is to create the buffer for handling them when they occur. This buffer is called management reserve. As we start talking about buffers, let's take a look at the budget components. The project buffers always include the activity cost estimations, activity contingency reserve, and management reserve. Please pay your attention at the difference between activity contingency reserve and contingency reserve. The first one is intended for handling the difficulties and delays in already planned operations. The second one is intended for doing the additional work that we have to do in case of risk occurring. Regarding management reserve, this buffer may be used only for handling unknown risks impact and nothing else. And you may ask, how does it affect my project? When you got the Archer standards estimation spreadsheet, you may see all the reserve and how they were calculated. Pessimistic and optimistic estimations of operation represent activity contingency reserve. Contingency reserve is represented in line risks. The list of risks and calculation of this reserve you may find on the risks tab, and the management reserve have already been included into the cleanup and acceptance line on the main tab. As you can see, our approach is very complex and cover all kinds of risks. So you got the estimation and started the project. Is the risk management process finished? Certainly not. The time is going. The environment is changing. Our project knowledge is increasing. For those reasons, some risks became not relevant anymore. Some risks change their probability and impact, and some new appear. We need to continue the risk identification process. For all known risks, we have to review them on the regular basis to reflect the changes of probability and impact. And of course, we must execute the responding plans and carefully monitor the occurrence of risk triggers. All the activities are mandatory until the project ends. But even after the finish of the project, there are several things we should do in the context of risk management. This moment gives us a good choice to review and improve our risk management process. First of all, we should check, does any unidentified risk occur? And if yes, how we missed it during the risk identification process. This activity allows us to improve our risk identification process. Also, we should review whether our responding plans work as we expect. If no, what would be better strategy choice? This activity allows us to create better responding plans in future projects. And finally, we should share our new knowledge with the entire company. Working on your project, we use all the experience of more than 500 projects to make it succeed. Many thanks for your time, and let's do a great project together.